1891. Basketball was created by a college instructor for Springfield University by the name of Dr. James Naismith in December of 1891. He was requested to make a sport that athletes could play to keep in shape during the cold weather. So Dr. James Naismith came up with the game of basketball. He thought of the concept of having a ball and trying to shoot it inside of a hoop, while you would go against people trying to get the ball away from the hoop. The original basketball hoops were made from peach baskets with a small hole and chicken wire that would connect and hang from the bottom. But it didn't look like the basketball that we knew today. It actually looked more like a soccer ball with football laces attached to it. And the basketball hoops was just a basket and there was no backboard. This was also the time where the men's basketball initiation took place. This initiation happened to make basketball officially a sport. 1892. In 1892, Dr. James Naismith was thinking of the rules for the game of basketball. He then thought of the original 13 rules of basketball. These rules were: 1. The ball may be thrown in any direction with one or both hands. 2. The ball may be batted in any direction with one or both hands, but never by the fist. 3. A player cannot run with the ball. The player must throw it from the spot on while he catches it. An allowance to be made for a man who catches the ball when running at a good speed if he tries to stop. The ball must be held in or between the hands, the arms, or body. Must not be used for holding it. 5. No shouldering, holding, pushing, tripping, or striking in any way. The person of an opponent shall be allowed. The first infringement of this rule by any player shall count as a foul. The second shall disqualify him until the next goal is made, or if there was evident intent or injure the person, the whole game, no substitute allowed. 6. A foul is striking at the ball with the fist, violation of Rules 3 and 4, and such as described in Rules 5 and 7. 7. If either side makes 3 consecutive fouls, it shall count a goal for the opponents. Consecutive means without the opponents in the meantime making a foul. 8. A goal shall be made when the ball is thrown or batted from the grounds into the basket and stays there, providing those defending the goal do not touch or disturb the goal. If the ball rests on the edges and the opponent moves the basket, it shall count as a goal. 9. When the ball goes out of bounds, it shall be thrown into the field of play by the person first touching it. In case of a dispute, the umpire shall throw it straight into the field. The thrower in is allowed 5 seconds. If he holds it longer, it shall go to the opponent. If any side persists in delaying the game, the umpire shall call a foul on that side. 10. The umpire shall be the judge of the men and shall not the fouls and notify the referee when 3 consecutive fouls have been made. He shall have power to disqualify men according to Rule 5. 11. The referee shall be the judge of the ball and have power to disqualify. Judge of the ball and shall decide when the ball is in play, in bounds, to which side it belongs, and shall keep the time. He shall decide when the goal has been made and keep account of the goals with any other duties. The rest between. 13. The side making the most goals in that time shall be declared the winner. In case of a draw, the game may, by agreement of the captains, be continued until a goal is made. After these rules were made, they had the first ever basketball game. The first public game of basketball was played on March 12, 1892, at a YMCA in Massachusetts. Unfortunately, no one knows the score for this basketball game or who even played in it. After basketball became a success, they introduced it to the female population. So in 1892, they had the women's basketball initiation. 1893. In 1893, the backboard was added to the basketball hoops. They decided to add them to keep fans from interfering with the game and to add the factor of rebounding so the games wouldn't take as long as if they were to stop the clock every time someone missed a shot to inbound the ball from out of bounds. The original backboards were made out of chicken wire, like the baskets, but they found out quickly that that wasn't sturdy. 1894. In 1894, they decided to take off the laces from the basketball. So pretty much it was just a soccer ball that they were playing with. 1896. In 1896, they changed the design of the basketball again, but this time it was the basketball that we all know and love. Also in the same year, the first ever college game was played. It was a game between the University of Iowa and the University of Chicago. The ending score was 15-12, with the winner being the University of Chicago. The reason the score was so low is because there was no shot clock, and we will get into why that caused the score to be so low later on. 1906. In 1906, they decided to change the goal structure and their overall look. They swapped out the chicken wire backboard for a backboard made of glass. They switched from a peach basket to a thin piece of metal that they referred to as the rim, and switched the chicken wire hanging from the basket to a net hanging from the rim. The goals looked a lot better until they noticed that whenever people would go for a bank shot, the backboard would always break. So they ended up switching to plexiglass, which is a lot more durable and stronger than regular glass, and it stopped people from shattering the glass by trying to attempt a bank shot. 1916. In 1916, James Naismith added the rule that you couldn't dribble then shoot. So you could dribble and you could shoot, but you couldn't dribble then shoot. It sounds a little confusing, so let me put it in this way. You had to pass the ball or receive a pass before shooting. This would make every single shot a catch and shoot, but it eventually was discontinued. 1936. In 1936, the game of basketball was brought to the Olympics. During this time, Team USA was the dominant. They were winning every basketball game that came their way. Team USA even had a win-loss slate of 122-5, which is really, really good. These games were played on an outdoor tennis court. There was even a game where there was a thunderstorm as they played. There were about 1,000 people in the audience at this game. 1940. In 1940, the first ever televised basketball game happened. It took place in Madison Square Garden, and it was a game between the University of Pittsburgh and Fordham. It was on an experimental NBC channel in the New York area. The final score was 50-37, with Pittsburgh winning the game. 1945. In 1945, a man named Howard Hobson had the idea to make the games a little more interesting by adding something to the game. So we thought of the three-point line. They tested this in a game between the Columbia and Fordham. People thought it was a great idea, but it was discontinued for an unknown reason. 1946. In 1946, the National Basketball Association, or the NBA, was made. Some people got together and thought it was a good idea to make an entire league based on basketball. So in 1946, they made the NBA. The league was founded by Walter Brown. He had an idea for using hockey arenas that weren't vacant that night to host basketball games. 1948. In 1948, the NBA made an official ball change with the size of the ball. They went from a random ball to a size 30 ball that increased the air so they could dribble better. But they didn't have a sponsor or specific ball at this point. 1950. In 1950, the NBA playoffs were introduced. The NBA playoffs were to motivate the players to work for something. So they added the factor of having a championship, and if you win, the team would receive around $59,000, which is around $140,039 in today's money. 1951. In 1951, a game between the Indianapolis Olympians and the Rochester Royals took place. But this wasn't any ordinary game. This happened to be the longest game in NBA history, being 78 minutes long, or 1 hour and 18 minutes long, with 6 overtimes being included. Remember, any ordinary just 4 quarters of a basketball game is around 40 minutes long. So 1 hour and 18 minutes, that's like 38 extra minutes of basketball. The Olympians did end up winning the game 75-73 though. 1954. In 1954, the NBA noticed something. They noticed that not many people were watching the basketball games anymore. They were wondering why, and then a man named by the name of Leo Ferris noticed most people didn't like watching basketball anymore because people would just hold the ball and just pass it around for 40 minutes straight. because since there was no shot clock, why wouldn't they? I mean, if a team already scored, then what's stopping them from just passing the ball and holding it, because you're already winning, so you don't really need any more points. Well, this would cause games to have such low scores, like 19-18, which is an actual NBA score when there wasn't a shot clock. People thought that it was boring to watch people just pass the ball for 40 minutes. The NBA had a problem, but Leo Ferris had an idea. He had an idea to make a 24-second shot clock, which meant that they couldn't sit on the ball all game. They had to get rid of it before the shot clock expires, or that would be a shot clock violation and result into a turnover, which would be other team's possession. And this plan worked flawlessly. Another thing they added in 1954 was the free throw line. Basketball is an aggressive sport, and actually the studies have shown that it's the most dangerous sport out there. So with all these fouls getting called, sometimes they just go too far. And that's kind of what was happening. They made the free throw line so if someone goes too far on the fouls, it would turn into free throws. They also made the 1-and-1 rule, so if a team gets 7 fouls in one half, that will result in a 1-and-1 free throw, meaning if the shooter makes the first free throw, he gets a second. If he misses it, then it's live. If it's a foul shot, he gets 2 attempts. So they ended up making that a rule. 1962. In 1962, Wilt Chamberlain was setting NBA records after record, and people were calling him the greatest player of all time at that moment. He set the record for most points averaged in a season with averaging over 50 points per game. He set the record for most rebounds in a single game with 55 rebounds. He set the record for most points in a single game with 100 points, and he was putting up crazy stats like 78 points and 40 rebounds in one game. The reason Wilt Chamberlain was able to do this is because he was a monster rebounder, and most people weren't that good at rebounding. Also, what's pretty cool is that there was no three-point line, so all of his points came from two-pointers and free throws. 1968. In 1968, the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame was born. Named after Dr. James Naismith, the creator of basketball, they decided to honor the best players to ever play the game. They wanted to make something to honor the best players in the world, or just to ever play the game. So they decided to add this Hall of Fame, and in the 2021 Hall of Fame, the most recent one, it included NBA legends Tim Duncan, Kobe Bryant, and Kevin Garnett. 1969. In 1969, there was a game between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Boston Celtics. Jerry West got the ball, and then he drove to the basket when he struck a specific pose. That would become legendary. That pose got noticed. And then when one of the executives of the NBA, Adam Siegel, saw this, he had a vision. A couple weeks went by, and that pose would become the NBA logo. From the moment on, Jerry West has been the NBA logo. Like, you can even see it. Like, here's the side-by-side image of the Jerry West pose and the NBA logo. Like, you can just see the correlation. 1970. In 1970, breakaway rims were invented. This was to stop people from tearing down the goals and having to cause new ones. Shaquille O'Neal was notorious for knowing how to just break down the rims. Like, he's broken down a couple goals in his career. I think he broke around like 2 in the NBA. And then also with all the monster dunks that we see today, like Vince Carter's 360 windmill, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo, like with all the crazy dunks that we see like going on today, like, I mean, breakaway rims are just there so it wouldn't just destroy the entire goal if they just did a crazy dunk. Also because, I mean, the size of these guys is just unreal. Like, that it would just take one power dunk if they didn't have them, and then the rims would be destroyed. 1979. In 1979, they wanted to add something to spice up the game of basketball. So they were thinking, and they decided to try an idea out again that they've tried before, but it just didn't work out. So they tried to test this idea out with some college games, and they liked the idea, so they sent it to the NBA, and it was the three-point shot. The three-point shot became a staple for the NBA. I mean, Stephen Curry's breaking records with three-pointers, and then the NBA, and now we thank God that they sent it, because the three-point shot is now one of the best parts of this game. Even I'm over here shooting threes. 1983. In 1983, there was a game between the Denver Nuggets and the Detroit Pistons. This game would become the highest scoring game in NBA history, with a score of 186 to 184. Both teams totaled 370 points combined, with the Detroit Pistons winning in a triple overtime game. Also, during this time, the NBA made a deal with Spalding, and Spalding started making the NBA balls that they would play with during the games. 1984. In 1984, there was a draft class that some may consider the greatest draft class of all time. This draft class featured Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, John Stockton, Charles Barkley, and many other legends. These 4 players alone combined for 8 championships, 8 MVPs, and 47 All-Star appearances, which is amazing. 1982. In 1982, the Dream Team was made. This would be the team that includes the greatest players of the 70s and 80s era. There were some players that weren't on the Dream Team. Hakeem Olajuwon was invited, and he was actually going to be on the Dream Team, but he got injured shortly before the game. Isaiah Thomas wasn't invited because Jordan and Isaiah Thomas had some beef, and Isaiah Thomas was mad that he wasn't chosen. But it was either him or the greatest player of all time. So you can't really blame the people choosing the team. Who would you have chosen? Michael Jordan or Isaiah Thomas? Anyways, this team consisted of Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson, Clyde Drexler, Scottie Pippen, Chris Mullin, and Christian Laettner. This team was so dominant and won the gold medal in the Olympics. And even the Team USA, Michael Jordan, who was on the Team USA, he played against his future teammate Tony Kukoc while he was on Team USA in 1992. 1995. In 1995, the Houston Rockets just got Clyde Drexler from a trade that they were involved in. The trade was Vernon Maxwell would be sent to the Trailblazers for Clyde the Glide Drexler going to the Houston Rockets. And then with this team with Hakeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, Robert Horry, Kenny the Jet Smith, and Sam Cassell, they ended up finishing as the 6th seed and won the championship. This is the years that when they went back to back. They set a record for the lowest seed to ever win a championship, but who knows? Maybe in 2021 the Los Angeles Lakers will win and become new because they finished as the 7th seed. So who knows, really? 1996. In 1996, the Chicago Bulls were the talk of the NBA. They went 72-10 and held the record for the best regular season record. And on top of all of that, they won the championship. Another thing that happened in 1996 is that they added the WNBA, or the Women's National Basketball Association. They wanted to televise and have a basketball league for women so they could play too. They didn't have the 30 teams like the NBA has. The WNBA would have 12 teams, but it would still be the exact same thing as the NBA, but only the only difference would be the sex. 1997. In 1997, the NBA hired the first ever woman referee. Her name is Dee Kanter. She became the first full-time ref ever hired for the NBA, and she even made history. 1999. In 1999, Wilt Chamberlain was on the top of the town, was the talk of the town when he was asked to do an interview. In this interview, he revealed that he thinks that Michael Jordan is better than him. He also revealed in this interview that he slept with over 20,000 women, but like the other 100-point game, some people think it wasn't real. People thought that Wilt Chamberlain was building a reputation of being a liar. People thought that a lot of events in his life never really happened, but really only Wilt Chamberlain really knows the answers to all these questions. I guess everyone has their own opinions, so you can decide if you believe it or not. 2002. In 2002, the Houston Rockets made NBA history. They became the first NBA team to draft someone that didn't play college ball in the U.S. as the first pick. Yao Ming was expected to be a bust, but he proved them all wrong. Yao Ming is a Hall of Famer and is a top 5 player all time for the Houston Rockets franchise. 2003. The 2003 draft class was another that was legendary. It featured Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, and what was the other guy's name? Oh yeah, LeBron James! These guys have a total, together combined, These guys have a total of 9 championships, 4 MVPs, and 45 All-Star selections. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think the 1984 draft class is better or the 2003 draft class? In my opinion, the 1984 draft class takes the cake, but I want to know your thoughts. 2009. In 2009, a new side of basketball was made, Trick Shots, popularized by YouTubers Dude Perfect, who consist of Tyler Toney, Garrett Hilbert, Corey Cotton, Cody Jones, and Kobe Cotton. After making a video and posting it on YouTube, it got attention from lots of sports players, and they even did some trick shots with Dude Perfect. Chris Paul, Aaron Rodgers, Odell Beckham, and Serena Williams are just a couple that have done some trick shots with Dude Perfect. 2010. In 2010, LeBron James had spent 7 years in Cleveland, and he wanted a change. So LeBron James decided to head to the Miami Heat. The NBA knew what was about to come, and they were right. People started threatening LeBron James for leaving his home and going to Miami, but he thought that was the right decision. And he's LeBron, so he deserves really to go wherever he wants. And I think that was the right decision because with the Miami Heat, he would go on to win 2 championships, and he even got to reunite, and he made a good friend, Dwayne Wade, that he reunited with in Cleveland a couple of years later.
About your decision?
Heartbreaking news for Cleveland. LeBron James is going.
The answer to the question everybody wants to know.
Over tonight, LeBron James is heading to Miami.
LeBron, what's your decision?
What should I do?
I'm not a role model, Shaw. Hey, Chuck.
In this fall, man, this is very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
2016. In 2016, a snake was born, and his name is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant was a hero to Oklahoma City Thunder until he bandwagoned to the Golden State Warriors to join and make a super team of Stephen Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and DeMarcus Cousins. And in this time, LeBron James went back to the Cleveland Cavaliers to reunite with Kyrie Irving. And this is when the Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers trend started, where it was always just consistently them in the NBA Finals. Also in 2016, the Golden State Warriors went 73-9, breaking the 1996 Chicago Bulls record for the best regular season record. They went to the finals but blew a 3-1 lead against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I guess there's really no stopping LeBron. I'm just joking. The Warriors did beat them 3 other times, but just that one time's the one that stood out the most, even when Kyrie Irving hit that shot over Stephen Curry. But I will say, though, Kyrie Irving shot looks a lot similar to Derrick Rose's shot over the Cleveland Cavaliers. I believe that's who it was. Look at the Derrick Rose shot. You see it. Okay, now look at the Kyrie Irving shot. 2020. In 2020, the NBA quit their deal with Spalding, and now Wilson is going to be responsible for making the NBA balls. And they've already contacted the NBA, and they already have their brand deal ready. So Wilson's going to be the new creator and maker for the NBA balls. And it's still going to be the same thing for the WNBA and the G League. Also in 2020, the Los Angeles Lakers tied the Boston Celtics record for most championships, which is 17. The Los Angeles Lakers are in the playoffs this year, but so are the Boston Celtics, and they are both as the 7th seed. Which one do you think? Do you think the Lakers or Celtics may win this year, or do you think that another team's gonna win? Let me know.